Welcome back to Elderly Smiles. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and click the bell icon to stay updated. Let's begin the discussion.
We've gotten some really fascinating articles sent in about the emotional side of aging. It seems like a lot of you are looking for some insights into dealing with those tricky relationships with friends and family that can get complicated as we all get a little older.
Yeah, you're right on the mark there. And it's not just about surviving these situations, but actually finding ways to thrive amidst all these changes.
Okay, so let's dive in. One thing that really struck me from everything you sent in is how envy and jealousy can pop up in relationships, even with those closest to us. You wouldn't think it'd be a big issue at this stage of life, but the articles suggest otherwise.
Yeah, it is kind of fascinating because, as we age, those feelings can become a lot more nuanced and subtle. What's interesting is that a lot of the articles point out how this often stems from the other person's own insecurities and struggles, not necessarily directed at you.
So they might be going through their own stuff, and it's not really about me.
Right. It's not a reflection on you at all. They might be battling their own, internal battles that have nothing to do with your successes.
That makes me think about, someone having a hard time financially and finding it tough to celebrate maybe your financial stability, even if they're happy for you deep down. It can feel so personal when it happens.
Yeah, it can sting because, we expect unconditional support from our loved ones. But the key is to respond with compassion. Understanding that their reaction is often a reflection of their own internal struggles, not a personal attack on you.
So we shouldn't dim our own light or downplay our achievements to make them feel better.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't dim your own light or downplay your achievements to make them feel better, but also try not to internalize their envy.
So it's all about finding that balance between empathy and protecting your own well-being. We don't have to absorb their negativity, but understanding where it's coming from can help us navigate those situations more gracefully.
Absolutely. And that leads us to another challenge that many of us face as we get older, misunderstandings and communication breakdowns, especially with, younger generations. It's like we're speaking different languages sometimes.
It's so true. I've noticed that advice that used to be appreciated now comes across as criticism, especially to younger people.
Yeah, well, the articles highlight how direct communication, which was valued in the past, can now be perceived as harsh or insensitive. A quick remark, even if well-intentioned, can be misconstrued as judgment, especially in today's more sensitive communication climate.
So true. It's like we need a translator sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
A simple suggestion about a career path could be taken as being completely out of touch with the current job market. It could be frustrating for both sides.
Absolutely. The takeaway here is the importance of adapting our communication style without losing our authenticity. We need to be more mindful of how our words are landing and be willing to adjust our approach without compromising who we are.
So more empathy, active listening, and maybe a little less straight shooting.
Exactly. It's about being thoughtful and considerate in our communication, recognizing that what worked in the past might need to be tweaked for today's world.
And all of this kind of ties into those differing values between generations, right? What we see as hard work and dedication younger folks might view as rigid or old-fashioned. It's like those core beliefs that shaped our lives are being questioned, which can feel very personal.
Yeah, it can almost feel like a personal attack when our values are challenged. But it's crucial to remember that younger generations have been shaped by entirely different experiences and influences. Their worldview is different, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
It's like they speak a different language, even if we're using the same words. How do we even begin to bridge that gap?
Well, instead of shying away from these conversations or getting defensive, the articles encourage us to share the stories behind our values. Explain why we believe what we believe. Connect those values to real-life experiences that illustrate their importance.
That's a good point. Stories have a way of bridging those gaps and creating a deeper understanding. They make those abstract values relatable and human.
Exactly. And sometimes simply listening to their perspective without judgment can open up a whole new level of understanding. It's about building bridges, not walls.
Okay, this next one's tough. Gossip and rumors. You'd think we'd be past this at our age, but it seems to be a recurring theme.
It's unfortunate, but true. And what's interesting here is that the articles link gossip to insecurity and boredom in others.
Oh, really?
When their own lives feel stagnant or unfulfilling, they might try to stir up drama just to feel a sense of excitement or control.
It's sad how easily people buy into those whispers, especially when they come from people we thought we could trust. it can be really hurtful and damaging.
You're absolutely right. And the articles offer some valuable advice for dealing with this. First, stay grounded in your truth. Don't let gossip define you or your worth.
I love that. Stay grounded in your truth. It's going on a sticky note somewhere. It's such a powerful reminder.
And second, don't fuel the fire by reacting defensively. Sometimes silence is the best weapon. By refusing to engage, you take away their power and avoid getting caught up in the drama.
So focus on the relationships where there's genuine trust and respect. Easier said than done sometimes, but I see the wisdom in that.
It definitely requires inner strength to rise above the pettiness. And that brings us to our next point, personal insecurities and how they get projected onto others.
This is such a subtle but powerful dynamic.
Yeah.
Like how someone might resent your good health simply because they're struggling with their own. It can be baffling when it happens.
It's almost like they're seeing their own fears and anxieties reflected back at them, and they lash out because of it. It's not about you, but about their own internal battles.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced it. Like, my good fortune somehow diminishes their own, even if it's totally unintentional on their part.
Exactly. And the articles emphasize the importance of viewing their behavior through the lens of their insecurity. It allows for compassion, but also helps you protect yourself by setting boundaries if needed.
So compassion is key, but it's also crucial to protect ourselves by setting boundaries if needed. We can be understanding without becoming a doormat for someone else's negativity.
Exactly. You can be supportive without absorbing their negativity. It's about finding that healthy balance.
Okay, this next one really resonated with me. Lack of empathy and understanding, especially from younger people.
It's like they just don't get the invisible challenges of aging. They might be impatient when you move a bit slower or need more time to process things.
Right. It's not like we're asking for special treatment, just a bit of understanding and patience.
Absolutely. What's important here is to communicate your needs clearly and calmly. Let them know how their actions or words make you feel without accusing or blaming.
But also to seek out those relationships where people are willing to listen and understand. We don't have to settle for relationships that drain us or make us feel invisible.
Exactly. You deserve to be surrounded by people who get it and who treat you with respect and kindness.
Speaking of which, this next point is all about competition and rivalry. Something you'd think we'd be past at this stage of life, but the articles suggest otherwise.
It's interesting because as we get older, those rivalries can become more subtle and nuanced, but still impactful. Like a sibling who's envious of your close relationship with your children, or friend who constantly compares their achievements to yours.
Sometimes those old patterns from childhood resurface in unexpected ways.
Absolutely. And the key here is to find a balance. Celebrate your own achievements without apology, but also acknowledge the strengths of others. Focus on building each other up rather than tearing each other down.
It's a delicate balance for sure. You don't want to dim your light, but you also don't want to fuel that competitive fire.
Exactly. And that leads us to our next point, which is about the influence of societal expectations on how we're supposed to act as we get older.
Oh, I know this one well.
Yeah.
It's like there's this unspoken pressure to slow down, become less adventurous, and basically fade into the background. But inside, we still feel vibrant and full of life.
And the articles point out how frustrating it can be when we break those molds. Like if you start a new hobby or pursue a new relationship or travel the world in your 70s, you might get some raised eyebrows. People expect us to act a certain way, and it can be challenging to defy those expectations.
It's like people suddenly forget that we're still individuals with our own hopes and dreams and passions.
You're absolutely right. The articles encourage us to push back against these societal expectations and live authentically regardless of what others might think. It's about choosing joy and fulfillment over conformity.
It's about owning our age and our experiences without letting society dictate how we should live our lives. I love that. Okay, this last point is a tough one. Lack of recognition, especially from family.
It can be heartbreaking to feel like your contributions no longer matter, like you're invisible to those you care about most. It's a very painful experience.
Like all those years of raising kids, building a career, all of it suddenly it feels like it's just taken for granted.
The articles acknowledge how deeply this can hurt, but also remind us that our worth is not defined by external recognition. It's about recognizing our own value and celebrating our own journey, regardless of whether others applaud.
It's about finding that inner validation and self-worth that doesn't depend on external approval.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't communicate our feelings to our loved ones. Sometimes a gentle reminder can go a long way. Let them know how their actions or words make you feel. It opens the door for a deeper connection.
So it's about speaking our truth while recognizing that sometimes people aren't in a place to fully understand or appreciate our experiences.
You've got it. It's about finding that balance between expressing our needs and letting go of the expectation that everyone will meet them. It's about focusing on what we can control, like our own thoughts, feelings, and actions, and letting go of the things we can't.
That's so freeing. After reading all of this, I'm struck by the fact that so much of the emotional turmoil we experience as we get older stems from trying to control things that we simply can't control.
Yeah, you've hit on a key point there. The article suggests that a big part of finding peace and happiness in our later years is about letting go of that need to please everyone.
It's like we've spent a lifetime trying to live up to others' expectations, and it can be utterly exhausting.
Yeah, it's true. And it's not about becoming, selfish or indifferent to others, but rather recognizing that we can't pour from an empty cup.
That's such a powerful image. We need to prioritize our own well-being before we can truly show up for others.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is that the article suggests this need to please often stems from deep-seated fears. Fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough, fear of losing the people we love.
Like we're still operating from that old script even though it doesn't serve us anymore.
Exactly. And the articles remind us that as we age, the people who genuinely care about us have already chosen to stay. They love us for who we are, imperfections and all, not for how well we perform or how much we please them.
That's such a liberating thought. It takes the pressure off, doesn't it?
It does. And when we let go of that need to please everyone, we free up so much energy to focus on what truly matters to us.
So it's not about becoming self-centered, but rather becoming more self-aware.
Yes. It's about prioritizing self-care, honoring our own needs, and living in alignment with our values.
And that leads us to the idea of embracing our true selves right, living authentically without apology.
Exactly. And, the article suggests that this can actually be a bit scary at first. We've spent so long trying to fit in to conform to those societal expectations that it can feel strange, even rebellious to suddenly stand out.
Right, like all those old shoulds and shouldn'ts that we've internalized over the years.
But here's the beautiful thing. When we embrace our true selves, we start attracting the right people into our lives. People who appreciate us for who we are not, for who they want us to be.
Those are the connections that truly nourish us, the ones where we can be genuine and vulnerable without fear of judgment.
Absolutely. And the articles emphasize that setting boundaries is crucial in this process of living authentically.
You mean learning to say no without guilt? It's something I've always struggled with, but I'm starting to realize how freeing it can be.
It's essential. It's about protecting our time and energy for the things that truly matter to us.
So it's not selfish, it's self-preservation. And it allows us to be more present and engaged in the relationships that do matter.
Precisely. It's about quality over quantity when it comes to relationships, especially as we get older.
One thing that really struck me from the articles was how they framed living authentically as a form of rebellion, almost a revolutionary act, especially in the context of aging.
That's such a powerful perspective. It's like we're challenging those societal expectations of how we're supposed to age and instead paving our own path.
And that can be inspiring for others, especially those who are just beginning to navigate the challenges of aging.
Exactly. It's about showing others that aging doesn't have to be about decline and conformity, but can be a time of growth, exploration, and self-discovery.
And ultimately, it's about finding that freedom that comes from letting go of the need for external validation. It's about recognizing our own worth, regardless of whether others see it.
That's a profound insight. It's almost like we're giving ourselves that recognition that we've been craving from others.
And it feels so much more empowering, doesn't it? Because it can't be taken away.
Exactly. It's about cultivating that inner sense of peace and contentment that's not dependent on external circumstances or other people's opinions.
It's like we're finally free from that roller coaster of seeking approval and then feeling let down when we don't get it.
You've got it. It's about finding that solid ground within ourselves, that unshakable sense of self-worth that allows us to weather any storm.
And that allows us to show up in the world with so much more confidence and joy.
Absolutely. It's about embracing all that we are, celebrating our journey, and recognizing that our story isn't over yet. There's still so much more to write.
I love that. This has been such a rich and insightful conversation.
It truly has. You've brought such thoughtful observations and questions to the table, and it's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
As we've been talking, I've been thinking about how much power we really have to shape our own experiences even as we get older. It's not about passively accepting, the changes, but actively choosing how we respond to them.
That's a really crucial point. That's something that all these articles emphasized. We have more agency than we realize a lot of times.
So what stands out most to you from all of this? What's the one thing you're going to carry with you?
Honestly, it's that reminder that we have the power to choose, how we experience this chapter. It's not about just accepting the changes that come with aging, but actively, shaping our mindset and our relationships. It's about defining aging on our own terms.
It's not about just aging. It's about evolving.
Exactly. And, as you continue to think about all this, one thing to consider is how you can use your own experiences to mentor or guide younger people facing similar challenges. Sometimes just knowing that someone else has walked a similar path can be immensely comforting.
Our experiences, even the hard ones, become valuable lessons for others.
Absolutely. And by sharing those lessons, we create a ripple effect of empathy and understanding that extends beyond ourselves. It's about leaving a legacy of wisdom and compassion.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. Thank you for guiding us through all this.
My pleasure. And remember, aging is not about fading away. It's about finding your own unique way to shine even brighter.